The next section is a bit more challenging. And this is to install, so 416 we're on now. This is to install the RGB LEDs underneath the tube holders here. In fact, why don't we take a small break and let's just check that what we've done so far is all okay. Let's give it a quick power up and then make sure that, well, what we'll be able to see. It should go beep. Don't go beep. Yes, it goes beep when we press the buttons. Okay, so there's not much to see at the moment. So here, we'll come back to turning it on when we've got the RGB LEDs turned in. You see there's a white circle on each of these guys here, and that corresponds to the longest lead. And to install these, it needs to be that these chaps go underneath here, and it says in the instructions we take 1/2 inch, and we bend, so that's 1/2 inch, 12 millimeters, and then we bend these guys up, and then we bend the head of the LED round. Okay, so something like that. And then when we spread the legs out, because they mustn't touch of course, we should find that the longest lead goes into the longest hole there. Now I have to make sure that it doesn't touch any of the, can you see down there? I have to make sure that the leads don't touch any of the tube sockets. So I think the right thing to do here is to place it on the table on the desk while we solder one of the leads, and that should mean that they all end up, when we have these RGB LEDs done, they all end up at about the same height. So let's do that for the next one. So we make sure that it's aligned so that the longest pin is second from the right. We'll measure it so that it's about 12 millimeters. Bend it over and then bend additionally the head over. And we'll pop that guy in as well. So longest lead in the hole with the dots on it. Place it so that it's resting on the desk from below, and solder just one of the pins. And then we can align them all later. And I'll just do this for the others, and I'll probably put it on fast forward. So I have to say, this is a fiddly piece of work. I think this clock is very well designed, but this bit feels a bit how you doing to me. You can't get in to trim the leads very easily. Maybe I should have trimmed them before I mounted them, but then you don't know you're going to mount them right. So this part of the kit build is suboptimal, in my opinion. Okay, let me go through and solder those other leads there. Okay, without spreading solder all over these little pins. Sorry I've been gone all quiet. This is actually needs quite a lot of concentration. I find it hard to yap on while doing something where I need to concentrate. Okay. So that seems to be done. Let me make sure that the leads on the bottom aren't touching at all. So I'm just spreading out the legs here on the bottom of the RGB LEDs. So to make sure that none of them are risking to touch each other. And I think we're good with that, more or less. Just angling the heads of the LEDs so they all point in the same direction. Let us see if there's anything to see when we turn the power on. Ah, yes, some colours. Are they changing? No. Alright, but anyway, we've got some colours. That is section 416 done. So now we're going to do section 417, and that is also a very easy thing, and that is that we install the temperature sensor, the DS18B20, which I think I chucked on the floor by mistake. Did I chuck it on the floor? Let's see. Is that the guy? Yes, indeed, that is the guy. So with this this piece, the picture isn't a very good one in the manual. It says don't solder this if you're using our stainless steel case, but I'm not, so I'm going to. And I'm going to solder it with fairly long leads, and again you have to mount it so that it's the flat side of the component is matching the flat side on the board, on the silk screen. That didn't take long, did it? That's section 417 done. Was easy. Now section 418, and that is building the 4 neon lamps. So this is super fiddly. So we've got 4 of them. little tiny neons, and yeah, it's really fiddly. So we're going to have to extend the legs of 2 of them. So the idea is they sit up inside these glass tubes and they're spaced out a bit. And if you can see here, the one that sits a bit taller, the legs don't reach to the floor. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to extend these legs a little on 2 of them. And I'm going to use some cut-offs from resistors that we trimmed before. I'm going to get, for this, I'm going to get my little helping hand, and I'm going to clamp those in there. And then what we're going to do, if you can see that, is I'm going to solder on. I should tin these first, they're not taking the solder very well. Okay. In fact, I'm going to hold that in some long nosed pliers. That's one done. Two done. That's one of them. Let's do the second one. And again, I'm going to use a couple of offcuts from resistors. Tin the leads up a bit first. The reason I'm holding them in pliers is because they get hot really quickly. That's the only thing. And although I do like to burn my fingers a lot, I prefer if I didn't. Okay, so there's those 2 extended. Now we're going to cut the heat shrink, which we've got, into 8 lengths, 4 of 20 millimeters and 4 lengths of 45 millimeters. So let me Okay, there's 4 short lengths and 4 long lengths. There's going to be plenty left over at the end. Alright, and then get all this stuff out of the way, and then what we're going to do is we're going to somehow mount them together. And how are we going to do that? We're going to stick, first of all, the heat shrink over the legs, so 2 over the short legs, 2 more over the short legs. So these will go in the front, in the front. So let's solder those in place first, and then we'll do the longer ones afterwards. So I'm just going to bend over one of the leads to make sure they don't try and run away. And I'm going to solder the other lead. 1, there's 2. How are they looking? Okay, I think. And then the longer ones. These are a bit fiddly to get in the holes. Let me just check that that's going to go over okay. You know what, 45 is too high. That's too high. 40 is better. So off all of these, so those are aligned at this end. I'm going to trim off a smidgen at this end. You know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to heat shrink them. That will look a lot better. The magic of heat shrink. That's going to look a lot better. I think it'll also make them easier to mount as well. One of the reasons, let's see if that goes over the top now. Okay, that looks a lot better. So I just pushed those in. Just pushed the tool one in to make sure it's sitting properly. So I soldered it, and now I'm going to reflow and push, and it's in. Okay, and now we can straighten up the other leads. Oops, that'll have squashed them. Never mind. trim the loose ends off. Okay, that was nice. Let's see how that looks with the glass covers over the top. There's one glass cover. There's two glass covers. Okay, that works. That works. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the build. There's only one thing left to do on the build, and that's to have a little test. Let me get the tubes. So once the tubes are in, I don't intend to take them out again. So again, we have to go through the nerve-wracking process of shoehorning them into the sockets. Which I may have already expressed my opinion that I don't like doing it. These tubes are from all over the place. 1990, 1976. I do have sets of match tubes, but if I recall rightly, I had an outgassing problem with one of them. So they're not matched anymore. Okay, let us see. Contact. Okay, we have, let me take, so we have some cathode poisoning problem, but it all seems to be working.